21 of the Army's toughest mountaineers are preparing to climb Everest the hard way. Their aim is to become the first British team ever to climb the notoriously difficult and deadly West Ridge all the way to the top. On this treacherous route, they'll have to battle 150-mile-an-hour winds, freezing temperatures and sheer cliffs of ice, while their bodies self-destruct from the extreme altitude. Of the 2,219 people who've summited Everest, only 19 have ever made it via the West Ridge, and 21 have died trying. The Army team have been at Everest for a week.
Tillman's camp, bring it on!
They've settled into their base camp and begun the push up the mountain.
Push on, see what I can find.
But their attempts are about to be threatened by a change in the weather.
It's too dangerous to come through it.
Hurricane-force winds and terrifying avalanches trap climbers high on the mountain.
We want to tell Ian to get down now.
I would say, fucking get off.
Camp 2, this is Camp 1, over.
While the lack of oxygen at this altitude claims its first victim.
He's dripping some fluid from his nose. It did look like the fluid that surrounds the brain.
The West Ridge route starts with a vertical kilometre of sheer ice known as the French Spur. Then it's a straight slog for 1.5 kilometres along the deadly knife edge of the West Ridge itself, before climbing a further kilometre into the thin air of the death zone, tackling the most technically challenging climbing of all to reach the top, almost 9 kilometres above sea level. The route is so difficult that to get just one person on the summit, the Army are having to employ what's known as a siege approach. The large team of climbers and high-altitude Sherpas has been divided into 4 smaller teams, taking it in turns to establish a series of camps on the mountain. These will form a pyramid structure, each camp supporting the one above it, so all the essential food, rope and supplies can be ferried higher and higher. Only when Camp 5 is in place will the strongest 4 climbers move all the way up the supply chain to the top. It's a grueling, slow and dangerous process, and there's only 5 weeks of the short spring climbing season left. Given Everest's unpredictable weather, even during this window, just one prolonged storm could leave the team too little time to reach the top.
Make a bit of a kit dump just below the kind of where the light meets the shade, just over there. Yeah. And then get up.
Right now the weather's good, and the first team are tackling the treacherous ice of the French Spur. Expedition leader Dave Bunting's best mate from home is Lee Woody Woodhouse. Quickly discovering that climbing precipitous ice 6 kilometres up is viciously hard work, he turns his thoughts to home for inspiration.
I've just been counting the steps for the amount of children I'm going to have with my wife to be when I go back to England. So my record so far is 42. I think that's pretty ambitious, and my lowest score is 8. So either way, I think there's some discussions to be had when I get home.
Woody's in climbing Team A, led by John Doyle. Known as the Bionic Man, John's an ex-Royal Marine and a full-time mountaineering instructor with the Army. Joined by Paul Chiddle and Guy Homan, their aim is to fix ropes as far as a site for Camp 2, before being replaced by another team and returning to Tillman's for a break from the altitude.
The weather window we've got is another few days, so JD and Paul Chiddle do a brilliant job of leading out the route.
But Woody's made the mistake of assuming anything about Everest's fickle weather. The team at base camp have just received some disturbing news.
Clouds breaking. The winds at our level have dropped to 10 to 20 knots. Yeah. But at 7,000, they're going to be constantly 70 knots for the next 5 days.
That's 5 days.
Yeah.
70 knots of wind is hurricane force, strong enough to demolish houses and uproot trees. On Everest, hurricane force winds can appear out of nowhere, rip tents apart and blow climbers clean off the mountain. But up on the spur, John Doyle's team have no idea what's on the way.
Here's Guy. We're just cutting some steps in the first part of the fixed lines after the bird run. You can see it's blowing a bit of a hoolie. Got any comment, Guy?
Yes, work if you can get it, you know.
On that weather forecast, 7,000 metres, which is roughly into their working area. That wind is too strong. They'll go there, they'll just die.
8,848 metres high, Everest is the only place on Earth that protrudes into the jet stream. This ferocious band of wind in the upper atmosphere strikes the summit at speeds of up to 150 miles an hour.
Cam 1, Tillman's over. Just got the weather forecast. Ready to copy, over?
Ready, copy, mate.
Winds at 7,000 metres are supposed to be 70 knots from 260 degrees. Roger, so far, over.
Ready, mate.
The knife edge of the French spur is critically exposed. John Doyle and his team, 6 hours climb above Camp 1, need to get off and fast.
Just thought, we're going to Snowdon for a picnic.
Everest's most lethal storm struck on the 10th of May 1996. 24 climbers were trapped near the summit by a violent offshoot of the jet stream. The wind caused oxygen levels to plummet by 14%, making Everest feel 500 metres higher. Suffocating and facing a wind chill of minus 70 degrees, several climbers were too weak to move. Forced to spend the night without shelter on the summit, they didn't stand a chance. In Everest's most deadly day so far, 8 people perished, while the survivors suffered horrific frostbite. 36 hours later, and John Doyle and his team have opted to wait at Camp 1, hoping that the wind will drop and they can complete their mission. But every day they're static on the mountain is a waste of rations, which will have to be replaced by more load carries. Getting the logistics wrong now, with the short climbing season well underway, could jeopardise the entire expedition.
John's team has been up there 3 days doing nothing. Ben's team 2 days doing nothing. That's a lot of rations just gone just like that. You know, and God knows how much fuel.
We only had 214 Camp 1 days rations. Okay, and we are 4 days into it. And we've eaten, what, 20% of them already?
There's no arguing with the maths, and the team at base camp order a full retreat.
This weather's in for 2 days.
Reluctantly, John Doyle and his team head back down to Tillman's, while the job of establishing Camp 2 must wait until the wind relents. The team's weather forecasts are tailor-made by RAF Strike Command in High Wycombe. After 4 days of bad weather, the news they've all been waiting for comes through.
The worst is over, is it?
Anxious to make up for lost time, fresh teams prepare to go back up the mountain. Royal Engineer Dick Gale leads climbing Team C with Frankie Francis, Jude Humphreys, Dave Wilson and John Joe Knott. After 3 years of training, they've just spent the last 5 days crammed in tents, achieving nothing while the short climbing season slips by. Frustrations are running high.
Who the fuck do you think you're talking to?
Dick. John Joe, come in.
A couple of tempers just being slightly frayed before we go between Dick and John Joe. I suppose ostensibly it's a question of who's carrying what, because we had snow stakes to take. John Joe picked up a whole load. I think Dick pointed out he had too many and was probably trying to be quite helpful in taking some off him, and John Joe being probably slightly sensitive as to what he should or shouldn't be carrying, and they just ended up getting a bit fraught with each other. And a good 4-hour walk will level out any excess energy that anyone's got for squabbling.
With the fight over who's carrying what sorted out, Dick's team head to Camp 1. They're supporting climbing Team B, led by Sergeant Ian Venables, along with Andy Nelson, Brush McComb and Dave Elsley. Over the next 2 days, their mission is to reach the top of the fixed ropes and find a spot for Camp 2. The 2 teams of climbers and their Sherpas move out just in time to clear the air for the arrival of some VIPs. Expedition leader Dave Bunting has invited a group of sponsors from the UK to inspect the team's progress. Over the last few days, they've travelled from sea level to 4 times the height of Ben Nevis.
It's further than you think, too. It's a lot further than I think.
Closely observed by the visitors, Ian Venables leads the way up the knife edge of the French spur. With 20-kilo packs at 6,300 metres,
Get there in the end.
this is viciously exhausting work. After 6 gruelling hours, they finally get to the only relatively flat part of the whole spur, the potential site for Camp 2.
How's it looking now, mate? Over.
It looks quite a stable platform we're on at the moment at the end of the lines, John. We'll start digging into the slope, we'll get a tent up and we'll get all the gear in it at least anyway.
Ian's a sergeant in the RAF regiment and is a hardened mountaineer. Having already tackled 2 8,000-metre Himalayan peaks, he's totally at home up here.
Fantastic day, not much wind. Where would I rather be? Nowhere else, I don't think.
What do you do?
Not at the moment. Yeah, but you're a civvy, Dave.
It's pretty awesome to the left at the bottom too, actually. It's a big drop there.
Yeah, that's right.
The impressive display on the mountain is working a treat with the VIPs. But not all of them are able to enjoy the show. Suddenly, Expedition Doctor Malcolm Russell has an emergency on his hands.
Can you clear out for a sec, please?
Stand on, let me.
Just had a collapse, that's all. There's a bit of oxygen on you.
Adrian Stammers, the chairman of Multi-Mat Sleeping Mats, has just blacked out.
Slightly concerned that he was dripping some fluid from his nose. It did look like the fluid that surrounds the brain, and there was a potential that he's got a small leak there.
He's showing all the signs of severe altitude sickness, a syndrome that can affect and regularly kills even the fittest mountaineers. If Malcolm doesn't act fast, his brain will swell and death quickly follow. Coming up, 2 of the team are trapped high on the French spur, surrounded by avalanches.
Do you think we ought to tell Ian to get down now?
I would say fucking get off.
But their radio's dead.
Camp 2, this is Camp 1, over.
While deep snow hides deadly crevasses, turning the glacier into a death trap. The army are attempting to climb Everest via the deadly West Ridge. Of the 18 routes up Everest, this is the most dangerous. The 21 expedition members have been divided into 4 climbing teams. Team B, led by Sergeant Ian Venables, has reached the top of the ropes halfway up the French spur, finding a site for Camp 2. But thanks to the hurricane-force winds, the expedition has fallen behind schedule. And from now on, it's a race against time to fix the rest of the route and launch a summit attempt before the climbing season ends in just a few weeks' time. Down at Tillman's base camp, there's a more immediate emergency. Adrian Stammers, one of the visiting VIPs, has collapsed. Doc Malcolm Russell has identified brain fluid leaking from Adrian's nose and rushes him into a decompression chamber in the shape of a large inflatable plastic bag.
Yes, the bag will get pressurised.
Adrian's body is overcompensating for the lack of oxygen at this altitude, and he risks death through swelling of his brain. By pumping air into the chamber, Malcolm can simulate the effect of descending the mountain,
4,000 metres, Adrian.
limiting further damage.
The plan is to get him down the mountain, driven straight out over the next 24 hours back to Kathmandu with a doctor.
While Malcolm gets ready to head down, Dick Gale's team at Camp 1 prepare to go up to join Ian Venables' team. Climbing the French spur for the first time, they're carrying supplies for the tents being dug in at Camp 2. For Royal Marine Frankie Francis and Army physical training instructor Jude Humphreys, the sheer wall of ice comes as a shock to the system.
It starts dead flat for Ks and Ks and Ks. Too many Ks, in fact. And then you hit this.
It's a pretty sharp climb, actually, to start off. Yeah. You know, nice Bergson down there.
And even the North Col doesn't compare to this.
It's a lot colder today as well.
This just goes on and on and on.
But up top we can see the ice glistening, and that makes it really tough. Forwards and upwards.
As the climbers slog upwards, Malcolm leads the recuperating Adrian and a makeshift entourage of nurses on the 5-hour walk down to the roadhead. They just make it down in time. Heavy drifting snow has swept up the valley. Adrian is rushed back towards the richer air and warmth of Kathmandu, where he should make a full recovery. The blizzard quickly reaches the mountain, and visibility high up is reduced to almost nothing. Heavy snow creates a deadly new danger for the two teams on the near vertical mountainside. Avalanche, the cause of twice as many deaths on Everest as anything else. Dick Gale's team get their loads into Camp 2 and hurry back to the safety of Camp 1, out of reach of the avalanches. But Ian Venable's team, worried about losing yet more time, controversially decide to stay at Camp 2, despite the avalanche danger. In 2005, a massive avalanche on just the other side of the West Ridge ripped through a camp on the South Col route. Over 40 tents were crushed by a river of snow, rock and ice. But miraculously, no lives were lost. Ian's team and 2 Sherpas spend a sleepless night at Camp 2, avalanches rumbling around them.
Thundered and snowed pretty heavily overnight. It's a good couple of feet of snow here. Just talked to Ian up at Camp 2. He's had a pretty grim night up there with wind and snow.
3 of Dick Gale's team have stayed at Camp 1 in case Ian Venables needs help. Breakfast breaks the tension.
Actual, real bit of reindeer there. Quite tasty, actually, dehydrated even.
Let's have a look, all.
And there's actual bright red bits in there. I can only assume they're reindeer blood, which has got to be good for you.
Oh, that's really cheered me up.
Real bits of reindeer.
Dave, there's something wrong with the cooker.
Down at Tillman's base camp, life is even better. Jude celebrates her return by throwing one of her magic menu days.
Oh, when we get the special stuff out, which is cheeses, meats, hopefully nice bread as well. Yeah, this will be a big boost.
It's a rare treat to the taste buds, it's very nice.
But one person is all too aware of the climbers stranded 1,000 meters above them in a total whiteout.
Are you worried about your Sherpas today?
I'm not worrying Came on Sherpa, but I'm worried about Camp 2. How safety Camp 2, I don't know, so.
And the next day, things hadn't got any better.
Morning. Blowing a hoolie outside. It's horizontal snow. Drifts, well, it's on the top of the tents. It must be at least 6-7 feet tall.
With all this fresh snow, yet another perilous danger is emerging. The glacier is riddled with crevasses, some of them 50 meters deep and wide enough to swallow a car. But the heavy snow is covering them up and making them impossible to spot. Increasingly aware that the route to Tillman's is turning into a death trap, Dick Gale's team at Camp 1 are still waiting for the boys to come down from Camp 2. Eventually, 3 of them do emerge out of the blizzard, bearing the surprising news that the other 2, Ian and Brush, have decided to stay on at Camp 2, hoping they'll be able to continue fixing the ropes.
Do you think we ought to tell Ian to get down now?
I would say fucking get off. And Andy and myself, just from experience with all that, we ain't going anywhere. And when the tent's an igloo, you know you've had a lot of snow. I think he is waiting for tomorrow to see if it's going to...
The thing is, there's going to be so much powder.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You're going to be wading. It's going to be absolutely...
Just been there.
It'll take you a day to clear the fixed ropes.
If we get hold of Ian, bring him down,
I'll give it a couple of days.
piss up down at Tillman's and stop eating scran, come back home in 48 hours time.
It doesn't clear.
Bug out, everybody.
Yeah. Everybody bug out.
Dick radios Ian and Brush to tell them to come down.
Camp 2, this is Camp 1, over.
But there's just silence.
Camp 2, this is Camp 1, over.
With the snow still falling thick and fast, those at Camp 1 decide it's time to act before it's too late for anyone to reach base camp. Dick relays the plan to Tillman's.
Andy, Dave, and everybody else that's come down there says it's a complete nightmare. There's about a metre of powder on the way down. Been setting off avalanches the whole way.
Dick explains that most of Camp 1 are coming down, while he and Frankie have volunteered to stay put.
Anywhere, mate, anywhere.
They'll be ready to help Ian and Brush if and when they try to make their treacherous descent.
They're going to head down to Tillman's to you today in about 20 minutes' time, over.
But even at Camp 1, the wind is 40 knots with zero visibility. The maze of crevasses on the glacier have become invisible under the thick carpet of snow. and the climbers returning to Tillman's without rope to secure themselves are a second group in serious danger. After 6 grueling hours, Dave Bunting and Marty make it back to base camp.
Welcome back. How was it?
Quite emotional. Prodding for bloody crevasses. Wasn't funny. Wasn't. Should have stayed in the camp.
Were you roped up?
No.
Dave Wilson, along with John Joe, has had it even worse.
Had to drop the trousers in a 40 kilometre mile an hour wind and sort a bit of diarrhoea out. And it's been bloody hard work.
Christ.
Fuck knows what time we left.
In the last 11 days, the expedition has managed only 3 days climbing. So far, they're losing the race against time. Even more worrying is Ian and Brush's predicament. Hopefully dodging the avalanches, they're still marooned at Camp 2. Luckily, Everest decides to smile on the team at last. The blizzard blows itself out just as quickly as it arrived, and Ian, Brush and their Sherpas make it down the mountain miraculously unscathed.
Hey Dave, good to have them back.
Yeah, very good, mate.
Thankfully this time, they did rope themselves together.
One of the Sherpas fell in a crevasse about 3 to 5 metres down and we had to drag him out. Luckily he was tied on.
Everyone's safely back at base camp, but now the weather's good, there's no time to celebrate. Expedition leader Dave Bunting urgently regroups his forces for the next attack on the mountain.
The team that I'm in will potentially have the harder day, clearing the ropes and carrying loads as well.
Sneaking up again, supporting John's team, but I reckon that means we have to do some load carries up to 3.
Really fit now.
Tremendous. That John's team can come through relatively saved for the next day.
Camp 3 is a possibility tomorrow.
I think so, yeah. If this weather stays like it is, yeah.
Look at where the sky goes.
But there's still over 2 vertical kilometres to climb, and conditions are far from easy. They're now almost halfway through the climbing season. There's a metre of fresh snow to make the task even tougher, and the avalanches are getting bigger.
Look at that. Just huge avalanche coming down the Great Couloir. Bit of a sobering thought, actually.
Next time, the team finally make good progress.
Camp 3!
Until politics bring the expedition to a grinding halt.
You lied to the deputy leader. You told him that Dick said you could come down.
And Everest claims another victim.
I thought all condolences from up this end. No, he went the whole way down.